Nerdy teen finally gets her sweet revenge. She was the invisible girl, glasses, grades, and Game Boys. They laughed. They bullied. They never saw it coming. But what happens when the girl no one noticed becomes the mastermind behind their downfall? This isn't just high school drama. This is calculated, cold-blooded, nerd-powered revenge, and it's sweet. Hey, story lover. Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go. Patricia Sweeney had perfected the art of invisibility by junior year. Head down in hallways, earbuds in during lunch, always 3 steps ahead of trouble. But trouble had a way of finding her anyway. Look, it's Wikipedia walking. Madison's voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a blade. The queen bee of Westfield High never missed a chance to remind Patricia of her place in the social hierarchy, which was nowhere. Patricia's fingers tightened around her physics textbook as Madison's crew descended like vultures. There was Brad, the golden boy quarterback whose test answers Patricia had been helping with for months. Jessica, the student council president who'd stolen Patricia's environmental proposal and presented it as her own. And Tyler, Madison's boyfriend, who'd once filmed Patricia falling down the stairs and turned it into a viral TikTok called Gravity Girl. Heard you're tutoring Brad again, Madison purred, sliding into the seat across from Patricia. How sweet. The charity case helping the star athlete. Very community service of you. Patricia's jaw clenched, but she kept her eyes on her book. She'd learned years ago that fighting back only made things worse. Better to fade into the background, to be forgotten. But Patricia Sweeney had been keeping score. Every insult, every humiliation, every stolen idea, she'd cataloged them all in a private encrypted file she called Project Equilibrium. Because in physics, Patricia knew every action had an equal and opposite reaction. They just hadn't felt the reaction yet. The breaking point came 3 weeks before homecoming. Patricia had spent months perfecting an AI algorithm for the school's new digital learning platform, unpaid, of course, because it would look great on college applications. The code was elegant, revolutionary even, capable of personalizing education for every student's learning style. Patricia arrived at school that Tuesday to find Principal Morrison in the hallway, beaming beside a banner that read Westfield High, Innovation Award winner. Our very own Brad Morrison has created groundbreaking educational software, the principal announced to the morning crowd. Harvard's computer science department has already expressed interest. Patricia's blood turned to ice. There, smiling for the cameras, was Brad, holding a printed copy of her code, her algorithm, her year of sleepless nights. The signature at the bottom had been expertly changed from S. Sweeney to B. Morrison. Madison caught Patricia's expression and smirked. Looks like someone's getting a full ride to Harvard. Must be nice to be so talented. That night, Patricia sat in her bedroom, staring at her computer screen. The blinking cursor seemed to mock her. She'd played by the rules, stayed invisible, hoped that merit alone would save her. But merit without power was just another word for victim. She opened a new file and began to type, Project Equilibrium, Phase 1, Reconnaissance. If they wanted to play games, Patricia would show them what a real player looked like. Patricia's first advantage was one they'd never considered. She was invisible to them, but she saw everything. Years of being ignored had given her the perfect cover for surveillance. She started with the basics. Every password Madison typed, every private conversation Jessica had in the computer lab, every time Tyler left his phone unlocked during class. Patricia's photographic memory and coding skills turned her into a digital ghost, slipping through their online lives undetected. The discovery goldmine came when she accessed the school's server through a backdoor she'd created months ago, originally to fix coding bugs the IT department couldn't handle. What she found made her hands shake with rage. Brad's revolutionary algorithm wasn't just her work, it was the fourth project he'd stolen this year. Jessica's environmental proposal? Patricia's word for word. Tyler's viral video essays that got him accepted to film school? All written by a girl named Emma who'd transferred schools after Tyler's cyberbullying campaign destroyed her reputation. But Madison was the true architect of it all. Patricia discovered a private group chat called the Extraction Protocol, detailed plans for identifying, befriending, and stealing from academically gifted students. They'd been running this operation for years, targeting kids like Patricia who were too isolated to fight back. The final message in the chat made Patricia's vision go red. Next target, that exchange student Luwei. Kids already built 3 apps. Brad needs one more project for his MIT application. They weren't just destroyers, they were predators. Patricia cracked her knuckles and began coding with lethal precision. Phase 2 was about to begin. Patricia's second advantage was one she'd cultivated without realizing, a network of fellow outcasts who'd been waiting for someone to make the first move. There was Peter, the theater kid who'd had his musical compositions stolen by the drama club president. Emma Sweeney, no relation, despite the surname, the quiet girl from AP Chemistry whose research had been borrowed by the star of the academic decathlon team. David Park, whose gaming app prototype had been copied by a popular kid who then got featured in the local newspaper. Patricia approached them one by one, not with speeches about justice or revenge, but with a simple offering, evidence of their stolen work and a chance to take back what was theirs. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Patricia told Peter in the abandoned computer lab after school. "I'm asking you to trust yourselves. We have something they don't. We actually know how to build the things they pretend to create." The network grew quickly. 12 students, all victims of the same systematic theft, all with skills the popular kids had underestimated. Patricia organized them like a heist crew, Peter handled social engineering, Emma managed the chemical components they'd need, David coded the mobile apps that would serve as their delivery system. But Patricia kept the master plan to herself. She learned from physics that the most stable reactions happened when each element was isolated until the moment of combination. "What exactly are we building?" Emma asked during one of their midnight coding sessions. Patricia's fingers never stopped typing. "A mirror," she said simply. "Something that shows them exactly who they really are." 3 days before homecoming, Patricia put the first phase into motion. It started small, little glitches in their stolen projects that only the original creators would know how to fix. Brad's AI algorithm began generating nonsensical learning paths. Jessica's environmental presentation started displaying data that directly contradicted her conclusions. Tyler's editing software corrupted every video file he tried to process. They came to Patricia for help, of course. The invisible girl who'd always been there to fix their problems. "I don't know what's wrong with the code," Brad said, sliding into the library seat next to her. His desperation was barely concealed behind his practice charm. "Maybe you could take a look? You know, like old times." Patricia looked up from her textbook, a manual on advanced cybersecurity that she'd been reading for fun, and gave him her most helpful smile. "Of course. I'd be happy to help." She spent the next hour debugging his code, secretly installing a backdoor that would give her complete control over his system. Every keystroke he made from now on would be logged. Every file he accessed would be copied to her servers. "You're a lifesaver, Patricia," Brad said, not bothering to hide his relief. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Patricia's smile never wavered. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." By the end of the day, she'd installed similar backdoors in all their systems. They'd invited the fox into the henhouse and personally shown her where they kept the keys. Patricia's investigation revealed the true scope of their operation. It wasn't just academic theft, it was systematic exploitation of every talented kid who didn't have the social capital to protect themselves. The extraction protocol had files on 37 students over the past 4 years. Patricia recognized most of the names, kids who'd suddenly become withdrawn, changed schools, or simply given up on their academic dreams. The popular clique had been mining the school's intellectual resources like a strip mine, leaving devastation in their wake. The worst part was how organized it was. They had research profiles on every target, complete with personality assessments, family financial situations, and psychological vulnerabilities. They knew exactly which students were isolated enough to exploit and which ones had support systems that might fight back. Patricia found her own file buried deep in Madison's folders. The photo was from freshman year, braces, thick glasses, a forced smile that couldn't hide her awkwardness. The assessment was brutal but accurate, extremely capable but socially isolated. Family too focused on work to monitor school dynamics. Perfect extraction target, high yield, minimal risk. Below that was a progress chart tracking every project they'd stolen from her, every friendship they'd sabotaged, every opportunity they'd redirected to their chosen recipients. They'd been systematically dismantling her future since the day she'd arrived at Westfield. But they'd made one crucial error in their assessment. They'd assumed that social isolation meant helplessness. They'd never considered that it might also mean freedom from social conventions, from the fear of losing status, from the need to play by their rules. Patricia opened a new document and began typing her magnum opus, Project Equilibrium, Phase 3, Total System Failure. The night before homecoming, Patricia's network moved into position. Each member had a specific role in what Patricia privately called Operation Full Disclosure. Peter used his theater connections to gain access to the school's audiovisual equipment. Emma synthesized a compound that would react with the specific hair products the popular crowd used, nothing dangerous, just something that would turn their perfect salon highlights into a kaleidoscope of unexpected colors. David programmed a series of mobile apps that would automatically download to every phone in the school's network. But the centerpiece of Patricia's plan required something more sophisticated than pranks or public humiliation. She was going to give them exactly what they'd been asking for all along: recognition for their true talents. Working through the night, Patricia crafted the most elegant piece of social engineering she'd ever conceived. It wasn't a virus or a hack in the traditional sense. It was a truth-telling algorithm designed to automatically detect and expose any digital content that had been plagiarized or stolen. She embedded it in the school's new digital learning platform, the same platform they'd built using her stolen code. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on her. They'd literally installed the mechanism of their own destruction. The algorithm would activate during tomorrow's homecoming assembly, when the school's entire network would be running at peak capacity. Every plagiarized project, every stolen idea, every piece of intellectual property they'd claimed as their own would be cross-referenced with its actual source and displayed for the entire school to see. But Patricia had one more surprise in store, a twist that would transform this from revenge into redemption. The gymnasium buzzed with excitement as students filed in for the pregame assembly. The homecoming court sat in a place of honor on the stage, their perfect smiles gleaming under the spotlights. Madison wore her crown like a birthright, Brad's varsity jacket sparkled with achievement pins he'd never earned, and Jessica held the student government gavel she'd won through stolen environmental proposals. Patricia sat in her usual spot, invisible in the sea of faces, just another nameless student in the crowd. But today, she felt different. Today, she held the detonator to their perfectly constructed lies. Principal Morrison took the podium, beginning his annual speech about school spirit and academic excellence. This year, we're especially proud to highlight the innovative work of our most talented students. Patricia's thumb hovered over her phone screen. One touch would activate the algorithm and expose everything. For years of systematic theft, documented in excruciating detail, would be broadcast to every screen in the building. But as she watched the crowd, saw her fellow victims scattered throughout the gymnasium, saw the other kids who'd been broken by the system, Patricia realized that revenge wasn't enough. Destroying the popular kids wouldn't fix the fundamental problem. It would just create new victims. She opened a different app on her phone, one she'd coded as a backup plan. Instead of exposing the theft, this program would do something unprecedented. It would return every stolen project to its rightful creator, complete with time-stamped evidence of original authorship. Every plagiarized algorithm, every stolen composition, every hijacked idea would automatically revert to the person who'd actually created it. But more importantly, the program would create an unhackable digital trail that would ensure this could never happen again. Patricia pressed the button. The change was immediate but subtle. Across the gymnasium, phones began buzzing with notifications. Students looked confused as their email inboxes filled with messages from college admissions offices, scholarship committees, and research institutions. Peter gasped as his phone displayed an acceptance letter from Juilliard for the musical composition he'd thought was lost forever. Emma stared in shock at a research grant notification for the chemistry project that had been stolen 2 years ago. David received 3 job offers from tech companies who'd just discovered his groundbreaking app. On the stage, the homecoming court began to look nervous as their own phones started buzzing, but with very different kinds of messages. College acceptance letters were being revoked, scholarships were being transferred, and research institutions were asking pointed questions about project authenticity. Patricia had programmed the system to be methodical, professional, and absolutely thorough. No accusations, no public humiliation, just a quiet redistribution of credit where credit was due. The stolen work was simply going home. Principal Morrison was reading from his prepared speech about Brad's innovative AI algorithm when the main screen flickered to life behind him. Instead of displaying Brad's name, it now showed the true creator, Patricia Sweeney, complete with development timestamps, coding signatures, and video proof of her working on the project. The gymnasium fell silent as the truth spread through the crowd like wildfire. This wasn't revenge, it was revelation. Every stolen project, every hijacked opportunity, every act of intellectual theft was being undone in real time. Madison was the first to break. Her carefully constructed composure cracked as she watched years of stolen accomplishments evaporating before her eyes. She leaped from her throne and grabbed the microphone from a stunned Principal Morrison. "This is fake," she screamed into the microphone, her voice echoing through the silent gymnasium. "Patricia Sweeney is nobody. She's just a pathetic loser who can't accept that some people are better than her." But the evidence was overwhelming. The screens around the gymnasium continued their methodical display of truth, timestamps, coding signatures, original files, even video footage from security cameras showing the real creators working on their projects. Brad tried to run, actually tried to bolt from the stage, but Peter had anticipated this. The theater kid had reprogrammed the electronic locks on the gymnasium doors. They would open again when the presentation was finished, not a moment before. Tyler pulled out his phone, probably planning to delete evidence, but found that every account he'd ever used was now locked pending investigation by the platform's fraud departments. The same viral reach that had made him famous was now being used to trace every piece of stolen content back to its source. Jessica attempted damage control, trying to claim she'd been collaborating with the original creators, but Patricia's algorithm had accounted for this too. Every private message, every deleted email, every piece of evidence that showed premeditated theft was now part of an unhackable public record. The homecoming court wasn't just losing their crowns, they were losing everything they'd built on stolen foundations. But Patricia had programmed one more surprise into the system, something she'd kept secret even from her own team. As the last of the evidence finished displaying, a new message appeared on the main screen. The above individuals will face appropriate consequences for their actions. However, this presentation serves a larger purpose than justice. it serves education. Every student at Westfield High now has access to the Intellectual Property Protection Protocol, a system that will prevent academic theft from ever happening again at this school. The screen switched to display a sophisticated application interface. Patricia had spent the last month building not just a weapon of revenge, but a shield for future victims. The system would automatically detect plagiarism, verify authorship, and create unalterable records of original work. But the real twist came next. This system was developed through collaboration between the Intellectual Defense Network and Westfield High Administration. Funding was provided through emergency grants awarded to victims of systematic academic theft. Principal Morrison's confused expression suggested he had no idea what was happening, but Patricia's algorithm had taken care of that too. Official emails had been sent to the school board, the state education department, and several national anti-plagiarism organizations. The evidence was so comprehensive and well-documented that Westfield High would become a case study in combating academic fraud. Patricia had turned their theft ring into the foundation for a protection system that would help students everywhere. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Brad's Harvard admission was revoked within hours, with the university publicly stating they had zero tolerance for academic dishonesty. Jessica faced removal from student government and loss of her college scholarships. Tyler's social media accounts were permanently banned for systematic harassment and content theft. Madison faced the harshest consequences of all. As the documented mastermind behind the extraction protocol, she was expelled from school and faced potential criminal charges for fraud. Her family's threats to sue the school district evaporated when they saw the evidence Patricia had compiled. But the real change was in the school's culture. The Intellectual Defense Network had grown to over 100 members, creating a support system for academically talented students. The stolen projects weren't just returned, they were celebrated, with special assemblies highlighting the real creators' work. Patricia found herself in an unexpected position, visible. Students she'd never spoken to were approaching her for help with coding projects. Teachers who'd overlooked her for years were recommending her for advanced programs. College recruiters were calling her house daily. The invisible girl had become impossible to ignore. 3 months later, Patricia stood in the same gymnasium, but everything had changed. She was holding a microphone, not as a victim or a vigilante, but as the newly elected student body president. Her campaign platform had been simple: every voice matters. Every idea has value. Every student deserves protection. She'd won in a landslide. When I first started at Westfield High, Patricia said to the packed auditorium, "I thought the only way to survive was to be invisible." I was wrong. The real survival strategy is to make sure everyone else is visible too. The crowd included familiar faces: Peter, now heading the restored drama department with his original compositions; Emma, whose chemistry research had earned her a full scholarship to MIT; David, whose apps were generating enough revenue to fund his own startup. But it also included new faces. Transfer students who'd heard about Westfield's innovative anti-theft protections. Academic achievers who no longer had to choose between excellence and social acceptance. Kids who'd been afraid to shine because they might become targets. Patricia had created something unprecedented, a school culture that actually protected and celebrated intellectual achievement. The best revenge, Patricia continued, looking directly at the camera that was broadcasting her speech to schools across the state, isn't destroying your enemies. It's making sure they never have the power to create enemies in the first place. The Intellectual Defense Network became a model for schools nationwide. Patricia's protection protocols were implemented in over 300 districts within 6 months. The Patricia Sweeney Standard became the gold standard for preventing academic theft. She received offers from every Ivy League school, multiple full scholarships, and job offers from tech companies that hadn't existed when she was just the invisible girl in the corner. But the offer she accepted came from an unexpected source, a newly created Department of Educational Justice, a federal initiative to protect student intellectual property rights. Patricia would spend her senior year traveling to schools across the country, helping other students build their own defense networks. She'd become exactly what she'd always been destined to be, not invisible, but unstoppable. Patricia Sweeney adjusted her MIT doctoral cap and looked out at the graduation audience. Her parents beamed in the front row, holding signs that read, "Our daughter, the system changer." Her dissertation, Distributed Defense Networks in Educational Institutions, had become required reading in education policy programs. The Patricia Sweeney Foundation had protected over 50,000 students from academic theft. 3 Fortune 500 companies had been founded by students whose work had been recovered through her original algorithm. But the moment that mattered most to Patricia came during the reception, when a shy freshman approached her with shaking hands. "Dr. Sweeney," the girl whispered, "I'm the invisible girl at my high school. They're stealing my robotics designs, and I don't know what to do." Patricia smiled and handed her a business card for the Patricia Sweeney Foundation. "You're not invisible," she said gently. "You're just getting ready to become unstoppable." The girl's eyes widened with the same realization Patricia had experienced years ago, that intelligence, properly channeled, was the most powerful force in the world. As Patricia walked away, she reflected on the greatest lesson her revenge had taught her. The best way to defeat a system that crushes the talented is to build a better system that elevates them instead. She'd started as the invisible girl with nothing but grades and Game Boys. But she'd become something far more powerful, the architect of a world where no talented kid would ever have to choose between achievement and acceptance. That was the sweetest revenge of all.